All right, here's your desk, new laptop, and unless you have any other questions, I'll let you get settled in. Yeah, where's the break room? Oh, and I'm gonna need tomorrow off. And the next day. Hey, what's going on? I'm Will Button. This is DevOps for Developers, and you either have a new DevOps job, you're gonna start a new DevOps job, or you're the person who's responsible for making sure that the people starting their DevOps job see success early on. So in this video, I'm gonna break down like the first 6 months of your DevOps job and give you some bullet points and some checklists and some things to ground you, to take some of the uncertainty out of it and give you like some things that you can check off of your list and feel like you're making progress, even if everything else is breaking down around you. So let's start with day number 1. All right, the very first thing you do before you even walk into the office on your new job or into your workspace, if you're working remote, whatever it is, either way, I want you to refuse to let imposter syndrome get a grip on your day, all right? And it's gonna be there. It's gonna be fighting for a voice. You know, you're gonna be experiencing new technologies, new frameworks, new people, uncertain environment. There's gonna be a lot of questions. And that little voice in the back of your head is gonna say,
they hired the wrong person, or you're not good enough.
So you can't stop that voice, but you can choose to not give it a vote. All right, so that's the very first thing. Now, once you start your job, you're going to meet with your manager, and you have met with this person previously during the interview process, probably, but the relationship was different at that point. You know, you were interviewing for a job, now you have the job, so the relationship is going to change a little bit. But be very open with your manager. Ask them what are their expectations for you. What are the areas of responsibility and areas of authority that you have? And then ask them, what should I be doing in your mind at the end of month 1 and at the end of month 6 that looks like success? And that's just going to help you understand what they're looking for. You're also going to meet the DevOps team that you're part of on this first day. And again, you probably met at least a few of them during the interview process. But one of the things I like to do is find a way to jokingly ask them, like, okay, for real, now tell me what it's really like here, you know, which is not a bad thing because, you know, there's always war stories that don't get shared during the interview process. And it may seem like a risky question, but in all the years I've been doing this, I've never had anyone, when I ask that question, just grab me by the shirt collar, pull me in and go, run. So I think the risk of that happening with you is likewise pretty low. But on the other hand, you're going to interject some humor, you're going to start to bridge that personal gap, and you're also going to find out a little bit more about the environment. And if I'm wrong and someone does tell you run, by all means run. The last thing you're going to do on day 1 is you're going to get your laptop or your workstation and just get it set up with the things that you know about, but not the things you don't know about. For example, get your email set up, get signed into whatever messaging platform they use, get your GitHub credentials set up, access to any repos that you know you're going to need, or if you know you're going to need Python or Node.js, install those and then just kind of call it quits there, okay? Because the rest of this week, we're going to focus on dialing that in to the exact things that you need installed. And that brings us to the rest of the week. So at some point during this week, you're in DevOps, so your customer is going to be the software engineers delivering a product or multiple software engineering teams. But I want you to find the Scrum Master or the project manager for the team that you're supporting. When you meet them, ask them to invite you to the daily stand-up meetings and any other meetings that that team has. Now, this is going to go like one of two directions. Either they're going to be like,
Whoa, this dude wants to attend our meetings.
Or they're going to be like,
Whoa, this dude wants to attend our meetings.
but either way, you're going to do it because doing so introduces you to the software developers that you're going to be supporting. And it also gives you a chance to see what the team's working on, which gives you some lead time to know what you're going to have to build and deliver to help these people be successful. The other thing I want you to ask the project manager or the scrum leader for, they know what everyone's workload is. So I want you to ask them to pair you with someone on the team to get your laptop set up to build and deploy the application that they build. Now this is huge, right? Because we're not factory workers here, right? So if I were a factory worker in an automotive factory installing the tires on a car, here comes a tire down this conveyor line, I pick it up, I put it on the car, I put the bolts in. I don't need to know anything else about that car. I don't need to know how to drive the car. I don't need to know what kind of motor it has, so on and so forth. But that's not the same for DevOps. If you're going to support and build the application built by this team, you got to know how it works. The more you know about it, the more you're going to be successful in supporting them. And so by sitting down with one of the developers from their team, you're going to get your laptop set up just as if you were working on that team writing code, and you're going to discover a lot of things in the process. Like, what does that process look like? Are they installing a lot of things manually? Are they sending you config files through instant messenger? Are they sending you passwords or telling you where to go get passwords from? All of that is going to give you some idea into the level of maturity and automation that they have brought to their daily experience. And then you're going to go through a deploy process with them that lets you see what it's like to actually deploy the code that they're building. Now, once that's done, you're going to go have a similar conversation with your DevOps team that you're a part of. And a lot of people do this in the opposite order. Like, I'm DevOps, I'm meeting with the DevOps team first, and then I'll meet with the product team. And I actually like to flip it for this reason. All right. If I sit down with the DevOps team, they're going to be going through Ansible and Kubernetes and Docker and orchestration and all this stuff, but I'm really not going to have a good idea of why. They can say, oh, it's for our web application or for our API server, but that's still kind of vague for me. So by sitting with the product team first, I get a firsthand view of what they're building, and I can actually run it on my local laptop by the time I'm done with them. So now whenever I go talk about orchestration and configuration management with the DevOps team, I can visualize in my head where those tools are being applied in the product that we're supporting. That's probably going to fill out most, if not all, of your first week. And so the last thing I want you to do during your first week is remember back on day one, you met with your manager and you got the definitions of success at the end of month 1 and at the end of month 6. I want you to rewrite those now using the tribal knowledge that you've learned from working with those two teams throughout the week. That's going to bring us into month 1. So we've got a week out of the way. We've got 3 weeks left into the month. So by the end of the month, I want you to start noting things that are being done manually. All right. And we're not going to change anything at this point, but you are going to want to identify what's the thing that happens to trigger this manual process, and then figure out how to interject yourself into the right place when that thing happens. So when the manual process is being done, you're already there. You want to avoid the scenario of someone doing something manually and going, we forgot to tell the new guy, right? You want to identify the trigger for that so that you're already there, and then gradually offer to take over that manual process. And your goal with taking it over is learning how to do it, freeing up their time to work on other tasks, and then eventually you're going to try and automate that process. A really good goal for the end of month 1 is to start taking on some tickets, and you're probably going to want to take tickets that are limited in scope. You know, things like building Docker containers, running Ansible playbooks, that kind of stuff are pretty much the same no matter what company you're working on. So they're isolated in scope and they give you the ability to start working on things and integrating yourself into the team. And then it builds the foundation so that you can start doing more project-oriented work later once you understand how the whole ecosystem works together. You're also going to want to take a look at the documentation, if there is any, because in some places there just isn't. In others, there may be documentation, but you may not know where to find it. So once you find the documentation, ask why it's in that location. That may be a piece of tribal knowledge that you don't have, and then it makes sense. Or if it doesn't make sense, it's something to file in the back of your brain. Maybe there's something we can do later to change that. The other thing, and this is actually a huge asset you have that no one else at the company actually has at this moment. You've got the beginner's eye. So when you sit down with the documentation and you read it, let me actually reverse that. If I sit down with the documentation that I wrote and I read it, if I skip something subconsciously, I'm going to insert that in there even though it's not written in the documentation. So I'm not going to see those gaps. You, however, with the beginner's eye, are going to notice that there's a gap there, notice that there's a piece of data or some needed information there that's not there, and then you can update the documentation to include that. Again, it's another way that you can start contributing and adding value to your team. The last thing, towards the end of month 1, starting early in month 2, you're going to want to get into the on-call rotation, right? Start taking that on-call pager and start working and resolving issues. It's going to seem a little awkward because there's still going to be a lot of stuff that you don't know, but make sure that you understand the escalation policy. Speaking of which, if you've never done on-call, I've got a video that I will put right up here on how to manage on-call incidents, something that I've done a ton of over the last couple of decades. But you're going to want to jump into that. It's going to feel nervous, but do it anyway because, stepping outside your comfort zone, that's where the growth happens. That's going to take us up to our 90-day point. And the 90th day is actually a golden day because this is where you're going to make your go, no-go decision, right? You've got a couple of months of experience with this company. They've got a couple months of experience with you. It's time to sit down with your manager and discuss, is this really the right place for me? Now, there's still going to be a lot of things you don't know, and you're still going to be nervous about doing a lot of things, but you're going to have a really, really good just gut feeling. Is this the right place for me? Am I fitting in with the people? Do I fit in with the culture? Are the values and the work ethics of my coworkers something that I'm proud to be part of? Those weigh more heavily with me than the technical competencies that I may or may not have. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, every single time I've hit that 90-day point and decided to try day 91, I've regretted it for the rest of my time at that company. So sit down with your manager, have this honest conversation, and make sure that what's happening is the best for both of you. So as we make progress towards our first 6 months with the company, one of the things that we're going to want to do is start referring back to our notes and noting all of the things that we felt like could have been automated. And we're going to have a little bit more experience with the overall ecosystem at this point. So it's time to start evaluating those. Which ones do you think are projects that you can take on and automate, and then bring those up with your team, get their buy-in, their opinions on it, and then start executing on those projects. And this is your transition from task-based work to more of a project-based type environment. One of the other things that's not technical, but I feel like is huge, is to find your voice in the team. Now, if you've worked with high-performing teams in the past, you almost always identify that, oh, this person is the orchestration guru, this person's the data guru, this person is the troubleshooting guru, because for whatever reason, anytime something's down, they instantly know where it is and why it's down. And that role will change from team to team as different people come and leave the team. People with different skills and areas of expertise will come in and the roles will shift. And that's what's happening with you in this team. So think about the overall team dynamics and what role you have or what role you can contribute to that, what gaps exist in the team, and then brush up on your skills to start addressing that role. One other thing that you're going to want to focus on is by this point, you should be fairly competent with the programming language used by the team that you support. So I don't expect you to be an expert in the language at this point. I don't think anyone does. But if you have the ability, let's say you're supporting a team using Node.js, if you have the ability to look at, read, and comprehend what's going on in JavaScript, it's going to be a huge asset for not only your team, but for you and your ability to help serve that team. And then the last thing I'm going to tell you to do at the end of your 6 months with the team is to do 2, either whatever you want to call them, talks or lunch and learns or presentations or knowledge sharing, whatever term is appropriate for you. But you're going to do 2 of them because if you remember early on, you sat down with the development team and you got their version of what the environment looks like. And then you sat down with your DevOps team and you got their version of what the environment looked like. And if you compare those 2, there were probably some differences there. So the 2 talks I want you to give is one to your DevOps team. And I usually call it something, pretty lighthearted, like here are the 10 things that you didn't know about software engineering. And for the software engineers, here are the 10 things that you didn't know about DevOps and our infrastructure. And then you're just going to highlight those differences. And it's a great way to just sort of bridge that knowledge gap that you identified early on, because that's really, really what DevOps is about, is reducing that bridge between these teams so that there's better communication between development and operations. I think that's all I got to say on this subject. What do you think? Was it helpful? Thumbs up? Thumbs down? There's no thumb neutral. You got to pick one. But if you would, I would appreciate it. Click the button down below that matches your satisfaction with this video. Leave me some comments if there's something that you think is important that I overlooked, or if there's something that really stands out to you in this video. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.